name is Elizabeth Phillips, and this is Mandatory Background Check for Child Care Providers. Who's watching your children while you're not? Vote yes to mandatory background checks is a vote to keep our children safe. The goal of this presentation is to validate why there should be mandatory background checks in the U.S. When I'm finished, you'll leave with the understanding of this mandate and you'll have enough information to form an opinion of your own. During this presentation, I'll first illustrate two cases of background checks going unchecked. Then I'll let you know a little bit about Florida's upcoming bill. And finally, I'll give you an example of a comparison of the pros and cons of this mandate. Unchecked. Here we have Mr. Prese and Mr. Sandusky. To the far right, Mr. Prese is a maintenance worker. He acquired this job in Jerusalem according to the Jerusalem Post. His background went unchecked. He is a 3-time offender and has a history of mental illness when it comes to these sexual crimes. This mistrust led to him gaining the trust of 3 young gentlemen which were brothers, 9, 11, and ages 15, and he repeatedly raped them over a course of several months until this came to a halt. Next we have Jerry Sandusky, which is a more recent case. He is charged with 52 counts of child abuse and assault, 12 counts of child molestation. A juror reports that he gained these children's trust by first building a relationship with them. His background was checked, but as the years continued, it went unchecked. And these matters went on to be checked on a regular basis. These things would have never happened. That's why I think mandatory background checks are a way to prevent incidents like these. A live streaming poll from MSN, momstoday.com asks, do you think people with criminal conviction should be allowed to work in child care centers? 50% of you said absolutely not. It's a deal breaker. 47 of you said shoplifting maybe. Child abuse? No. And 3% of you said yes. People can change. But what do you think? Next, I'll be telling you about Florida's new bill. Florida's House Bill 7069 is a mandate providing background checks for all child care providers. This is new. It starts August 1st, signed by Governor Charlie Crist. It was unanimously passed by the legislature. It deals with people working with and around children, minors, teenagers, older adults, seniors, and disabled. People who possibly couldn't think for themselves or need help and assistance from someone. This information stems from the employment screening resource, ers.news. Disqualifying factors according to the Florida House Bill. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the administration, these are just a few. The following offenses will disqualify you if committed within the past 5 years. That's also part of Florida's House Bill. They give you the benefit of the doubt. You have 5-year span to commit these crimes. Finally, I'll be talking about its pros and cons. Of course, safer children, staff with higher morale, comforted parents, a level-headed staff, and also as a plus screening costs. According to the Association of Corporate Counsel, the screening costs will be deferred by grants. That's how we'll pay for all the screening costs. Cons: biased interviewee who don't care about the laws. They just care that you have been convicted. Only partial will qualify, meaning because some people won't qualify, you'll have half as many people who can actually qualify for this job. Underqualified workers work for less. Even though someone might have the credentials, the background to work with children, maybe they have committed a harsh crime that will restrict them from working. As I've stated, they qualify after 5 years. Maybe they have to wait for those 5 years. Someone who is less qualified will get the job before them, and that's a con to this rule as well. Something that is mutual is may qualify after 5 years. You have a 5-year time span to go through what you need to go through and get everything, I guess you can say, adjudicated from your record, if that's really what you want to do. And compliance with state laws, I also got that information from ACC.com, which is the Association of Corporate Counsel. Compliance with state laws. Every state has their own laws. So what's good for us, for example, the 5-year law might not be good for another state. You might choose 10 or 7 years. So that's also something that's in the process in the beginning. Now that I've told you a little bit about this mandate, you now know about mandatory background check for child care providers. I've given you 2 cases where these backgrounds have went unchecked. I've let you know Florida's law, the House Bill 7069, and a little more about it. And then I compare its pros and cons to let you know both sides of this mandate. In conclusion, mandatory background checks for daycare providers keep our children safe. These horrifying incidents, as I stated in the first 2, could have all been avoided if background checks were implemented from the beginning, or if they were followed through and checked. After these crimes were committed, criminals were brought to justice. But why should we wait for the crime to be committed? Let's practice prevention. Mandatory background checks for child care providers.